Thomas-Symonds, the Shadow Home Secretary, made a speech today, or at least today is when I'm recording this, to Labour Party conference, and it was pretty interesting. It marked quite a distinct shift from a lot of the arguments of the later Corbyn years around policing. So let's take a look at one bit that especially stood out to me, and then we'll discuss it after.
We can never again allow the Tories to call themselves the party of law and order. We have the shame of rape convictions at record low levels. In Tory Britain, less than 7 in every 100 violent crimes even ends up with a charge. Now, some call for defunding the police, but no Labour Home Secretary will ever defund the police. That's not our party, that's the Tory party, and they've spent 10 years defunding the police. The shutters rolled down on hundreds of youth clubs, totally inadequate mental health services, thousands of police officers and police staff cut, ripping the heart out of neighbourhood policing, and over 2 million incidents of antisocial behaviour in the past year. This is all the result of failed Conservative policies and Conservative broken promises.
So that was fascinating. I was in the room when he said that, and it was a very popular thing, at least in the room, that he said. There was sort of, as you heard from the video, thunderous sort of applause. And the auditorium wasn't that full really, but it kind of felt like it at that moment. And that is a perfect summation, I think, of what Labour's policy on the police force is at the moment. Now, during the Corbyn years, especially around that sort of 2017 to 2018 period, there was a very popular policy of putting about 20,000 more police officers on the streets. Now, that was one of the things that I think allowed Labour to go from being sort of, about 24% in the polls at the beginning of that election campaign, all the way to about 40% at the end of that campaign. A huge jump of 16 points. I mean, that's basically unprecedented. And it was because, people were very concerned about rising levels of violent crime. They were very concerned about antisocial behaviour, and they were very concerned about terrorism. There was, of course, an attack on Britain during the election campaign, and I think this idea of finally investing more in the police force and stopping the cuts that the Tories were implementing was very popular, and it got a lot of people on board with Labour. But then something that is a lot of the more left-wing and far left elements of the party and of British society, something that has kind of come from a lot of the really horrendous stories about police brutality, particularly in America, but there have been instances here, let's not absolve ourselves. That seems to have kind of changed people's attitudes a little bit on the left. And of course, some people talk about defunding the police. It's quite a popular policy in some parts of America. Certainly demilitarising the police, but our police isn't very militarised at all. They are trained for longer and trained much better for de-escalating situations and offering help. We also don't make it so that the police responds to just about every possible disturbance or call there is. We get other professionals to help out more, like mental health professionals. We need to be doing a lot more of that. We need to be investing a lot more in social services, but our police are very different to the US's, and they're a hell of a lot better, let's be honest. But they're not perfect, far from it. There are still a lot of incidences of police brutality, and stop and search has been shown to be something that disproportionately affects people of colour in the UK way more than people who are white. So clearly there's a lot of reform that needs to take place. But this is the Labour Party really drawing a line in the sand and saying, no, we do not believe in defunding the police. We don't believe in alternative means of preventing crime. We believe we need to have a strong police force, and we need to put more police officers on the streets. Nick Thomas-Symonds said that several times. That is something that Labour has been saying over and over again recently. And I'll be honest, a lot of people on the left might not like me for this, but I think that's the right policy. You cannot be too over-reliant on the police, and you cannot just want to put police officers everywhere to try and solve every problem there are. That's absolutely ridiculous. And we need to make sure that we are investing way more in social services, giving more teeth to social services, investing in anti-poverty programs, investing in education, improving the welfare state. There are many, many other things that need to be done. But I do think we need to invest more in the police force, and we need more police officers on the street. You can do that whilst implementing wide-ranging reforms to eradicate police brutality and make the police force far less discriminatory. You can do those two things at once. And of course, Labour is sort of re-adopting that old Blairite slogan, tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime, which is a great slogan, to be fair. I mean, it's very effective. I'm not sure what that says about the party, that they can't even come up with a good new slogan regarding their position on crime. But it's not a bad slogan, and as long as the party is serious about dealing with the causes, that is poverty, lack of education, lack of opportunities, things like that, as well as dealing with the crime itself by putting more bobbies on the beat, then, as long as they're committed to both of those, I think that's a good thing, honestly. Nick Thomas-Symonds surprised me because he's basically been a bit of a nothing Shadow Home Secretary so far. But today, I quite liked his speech. I thought it was quite good. There was at least a little bit of substance in there, which was nice. But now it's just for Keir Starmer to hopefully knock us all out of our seats, blow our socks off, with a fantastic, charismatic speech that shows us who he is and gives us some really strong, clear bread and butter policy initiatives that Labour would implement that are really going to speak to the needs and the hopes of the British people. But who knows? So I just thought that was interesting. And if you want, his speech is on YouTube as part of the whole streaming of day 3 of conference. Day 4 of conference. And if you want to watch it, go ahead. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching. As always, I'm interested to know what your opinions are on this. Do you think this is really just Labour trying to appeal more to socially authoritarian and socially conservative people, without actually acknowledging that the police force does have many problems, it does need reforms, and without really committing to those kind of anti-poverty programs, investing in social services, education, stuff like that, and are they really that serious about that side of things, about the preventing the causes of crime as well as crime itself? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave them in the comments below. So thank you very much for watching, as always, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.